Hello, I'm Doug Musio. This is City Talk. We have an unelected controller because of financial corruption. We have an unelected governor because of moral corruption, and an unelected senator who's a political chameleon with neither scruples nor principles. So says New York State Republican Party Chairman Ed Cox, and he intends to put all these Democrats out of office, along with Democratic congressmen and state legislatures. Is he delusional, or can he engineer a GOP comeback in New York that his father-in-law would have loved? Ed Cox was selected New York Republican State Committee Chairman this past September. He is an attorney at Patterson, Belknap, Webb, and Tyler, and currently serves, among many other positions, as a State University of New York trustee and the chair of the New York League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. In 2008, he headed John McCain's New York campaign, and in 2006, Attorney General-elect Andrew Cuomo's Environmental Transition Team. He served in the Reagan administration from 1981 to 1983. After graduating college in 1968, went with Ralph Nader and ultimately became one of the Raiders. In 1971, he married Tricia Nixon, daughter of then-President Richard Nixon. Welcome, Ed.
Doug, good to be with you.
Congratulations on your selection, and I guess congratulations on the 2009 elections, which we'll get into. Let's start with the State of the State message. Governor Patterson has a discussion of the state of the state, and it looks like what he's trying to do is make everybody mad at him. He calls out the legislature, he calls out the good government groups, and it looks like he's trying to do Truman versus Congress. What's going on?
Well, there's a difference in Truman. He didn't make the Republicans mad at him with respect to what he said about being fiscally conservative and capping spending. That's our message.
That's right.
And it's a message that is demanded by the Times now, where we're talking about huge budget deficits in Washington, huge budget deficits in Albany. The next elected governor is going to face probably a $20 billion deficit when the federal stimulus cover goes away.
Unbelievable. But as you point out, Dean Skelos basically could have delivered the governor's speech.
Well, not the entire speech.
Well, go ahead. Talk about the speech and its content that you agree with, and also what you find problematic.
Well, let me first say, and it is significant, that this was much better than the State of the Union last year, where he was all over the place and he didn't get his message across.
Right, and the big thing was fat and obesity. I understand.
Right, that's what he led with, but this one he really worked on clearly. Because of his disability, he memorized it completely, and so this is really his message that he wanted to deliver, and that was, we are in deep trouble in the state, and we have to do something about it, and we have to do something about it.
And you guys, the legislature, are responsible.
No, it's the Democratic who run the legislature, and the Democratic leaders and the Democratic legislators sat on their hands while the governor was telling them, this state is going broke.
So
they are not willing to act. That's going to be the problem in the state. And if they don't act, we're headed the way California is, where they are writing script to pay their bills rather than be able to pay them as they come due. We're already not paying our bills as they come due as a state. The governor's put off payment of certain things till next year, hoping that the tax revenues will go up. They're not going to go up. Where this state is in deep trouble.
What is a Republican governor going to do that a Democratic governor, let's say Patterson or Andrew Cuomo, we'll talk about that later, would do that's any differently, that actually got results?
Look, the biggest Republican principle, and is in the gut of any of our candidates for governor, and that is to be a fiscal conservative. We have to really scale back government. After all, families around New York State are having to save more, they're having to spend less, and if they can do that to cut their deficits, the family deficits, why can't the state government do the same? And that is why the deficit at all polls is right at the top as a problem, even though it's an abstract thing. deficit. The people of New York State are concerned about.
Let's move from the abstract to the concrete. What does a Republican governor do concretely to effectuate your principles?
He's going to have to cut back spending. First of all, you got to do that.
And you got to do it in education. You got to do it in health.
You got everything's got to be on the table. Everything's got to be on the table. I mean, the New York Times, 2-3 years ago, they had an article on Medicaid, which basically said there's $5 billion of fraud there, and maybe the Attorney General and the Governor are finding $100 million here, $100 million there. They're not really going after it. You've got to go after those items, which, first of all, which are just where you're talking about fraud, money being spent that shouldn't be spent on certain things, and then you have to have some real substantive cuts. You have to decide what are the essential services that the people of New York State need, and what's the most efficient way to deliver them. And that's where Republicans are good at, delivering efficient government and also making sure that what we're doing are the essential services that the people of New York State need.
Well, I think one could look back at the Pataki administration and say that maybe Republicans don't always follow Republican principles.
Well, he was being roughed up by the Democrats in the legislature, and the unions were going after him.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'll tell you, he succeeded in his first couple of years there. But
then he played a traditional game.
But in his first year, he faced a $5 billion deficit left over by Governor Cuomo, and he wanted to cut taxes by $5 billion, which he had pledged during the campaign. He cut the budget by $10 billion. That was quite an accomplishment.
When you look at the second and third Pataki terms, there was a Democratic look to a lot of those budgets.
And one of the problems I think there was that he didn't have the ongoing support that he had in his election in '94. We had a group called Change New York and others who got behind him and supported him. And then after the election, they said, okay, we've done, that's it, isn't it great? We've elected a Republican governor, and they disbanded. And then in '97 and '98, when the forces that be in New York started going after him because he is being a fiscal conservative, he looked around for support and wasn't there. What I intend to do as chairman of the party is to build up the party so on an ongoing basis it will be able to support on the political side a governor who's doing the things that are necessary for this state. So when he's attacked by people who just want to spend, there will be an organization there that will back him and make sure it's a good, fair political fight over how the state's going to conduct its business.
So to a certain extent, what you need to do is rebuild the farm team. The farm team is absolutely crucial because right now you don't have too many major leaguers. You've got to develop the bench. Now, the 2009 election produced some candidates for the bench. Talk about rebuilding the party.
Well, we actually have a very good bench if you take a look at. They're called county executives. These are in the major counties, most of which have major urban areas within their counties. We just added to that Nassau with Mangano's tremendous and surprise win. We added Rob Astorino in Westchester. We already had Rockland County, and then of course going around the state, you got
Ulster, you got
we got Chemung. These are county execs who have been dealing day in day. Got Chemung. We have Erie, Chris Collins, who won surprise victory 2 years ago because he's a real
possible statewide candidate now.
Exactly. And then you've got in Monroe County, Rochester, we've had Maggie Brooks, who is a really good conservative.
So you're saying that the farm team is there?
We got Utica, which is Oneida County. We've got Rensselaer, which is a suburb of Albany. And then we have those Lower Hudson Valley County. These are our executives who have been good fiscal conservatives, have run their counties well, been reelected time and again because they've done that.
So you're very optimistic about 2010. Now, 2010 is one of these major years, both in terms of if you believe in the cycles of electoral politics, as well as the fact that in New York you've got everybody running in the same election. You've got 2 senators, governor, attorney general, controller, legislature, 29 congressional seats. I mean, you've got everything going on.
Doug, let's sort this out. There is, in fact, really almost an ironclad 14 to 16-year cycle going back to 1952 when Republicans have huge victories. presidencies. 52, we win the presidency, both houses of Congress. 66, we win 47 seats in the House. Go to 80, President Reagan wins, and he wins the Senate.
And
along
94,
with
you've got the Republican Revolution and George Patton.
Then you have 94, which was great. We won both houses of Congress and won the governorship.
What are the conditions now that make your opportunity as great as you seem to see it?
Actually, I compare this to the 1966. The first cycle, I watched in Mr. Nixon's eyes. He moved from California in 63. He was a lawyer here. I met his daughter, Tricia, fell in love. So I watched.
I remember the wedding. It was great. Yeah. I think Look magazine or Life magazine characterized it akin to American royalty. I can see the photos in the spread.
Mrs. Nixon and Trish did a beautiful job. It was for the nation, the wedding, and they did a beautiful job in doing it. But the cycles, 66. Johnson's Great Society programs were passed on a bipartisan basis, by the way.
Yep.
But that energized our base. It said, this is more big government. We got to do something about it. The Vietnam War ramp up that he did at the same time, that de-energized his base. The result was we won 47 seats in the House.
And then the presidency with your father-in-law in
Doug, does it sound familiar to what's happening now? Obama's big government programs, and he's also got his which is really getting our base very upset, and the Afghan war, which he is in with both feet, and Pelosi and splitting his party. That's going to suppress his vote, and you can see that. You can see that in the polls. There's a difference, though. In '66, Johnson had guns and butter. The economy was going well. It hadn't collapsed yet. Obama's got an economy that is about as bad as you can get. This is the Great Recession. Unemployment at 10%. That's not going to get better between now and November. We'd like to get better, but it doesn't look like it's going to. Housing prices are really in the depths. I don't think they're going to come out very soon because this has been a housing recession in large part. All those things come together show that, plus the fact that the Democrats now control everything in Washington overwhelmingly, and everything in Albany, and everything statewide, all statewide offices for the first time since the 19th century here in New York State. They are completely in control. And the American people like checks and balances. They want to see competition. At the moment, there's no competition. And as a result, you're getting bad government in Washington and you're getting bad government in Albany.
But it's incumbent upon you, the opposition party, to provide the competition.
You bet.
So let's sort of look through, the lineups. And you
hit it. That's why I'm doing this job, because of the opportunity here to really be competitive in this kind of a year and to put out candidates who are going to give New York State, Republican candidates, are give New York State the kind of government it needs.
Right, and in a sense, I think I've read somewhere that you look at the bad cycles in 2006 and 2008 as sort of the ashes from which the phoenix rises. And then when you talk about 66, 64 was the hugest landslide up to that time. So after these huge landslides,
that's because these huge landslides give all power to one party,
and power corrupts, and
power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the Democrats have absolute power in Washington. They're cramming through the big government programs without bipartisan support. At least Johnson was smart enough to have bipartisan support.
But wait a minute. It's not only that he hasn't gotten bipartisan support. In a sense, the Republican Party, if I might, seems to be the party of no, both at the state
level
the way it's being characterized, and the national level. I'll characterize it.
We're the party of yes, and we have health care proposals that are on the table there. Let's have a national purchase of health care. We're just not restricted to buying here in New York State. Let's get real tort reform. How about some tort reform? You talk to doctors.
I don't know about John Sampson and Shelley Silver wanting tort reform.
You're right, because both of them, and you're talking about corruption, both of them are getting paid by law firms that are leading tort law firms. These are firms that go out and some sort of call them ambulance chasers. They go out and they thrive off of malpractice trials.
I understand the integrity argument, but I think of names like Bruno, Fasella, Valella, and unfortunately they're all Italo-Americans who happen to have been Republicans who are not exactly paragons of public virtue.
But Doug, who's in power now?
The Dems.
Sampson and Shelley Silver.
Okay.
And particularly, if you want to talk about control, who's in control here? They used to say 3 men in a room. The governor really, look, the President of the United States of his own party comes to Hudson Valley Community College, steps on his own message about economic development community colleges, and says, I want another person to be governor.
Well, he doesn't quite say that, but that's how it's interpreted.
Look, he's smart enough to know what he was doing.
Those
were the headlines. So you got a lame duck governor at a time when we need a strong governor here. You've got a majority that the Democrats have in the Senate, but they're all divided among themselves. They can't settle on what they ought to do. So you know it's one man in a room. It's Shelley Silver who's running it. And what's his mandate? His mandate's a couple thousand votes here in New York City.
And his electoral campaign support.
That's not a mandate to govern New York State. That's why we need a good competitive election in 2010, and we need to get back a majority in the Senate, elect a Republican governor, and then we can have some good government here in New York State. With a real mandate to do what New York State needs.
Okay, let's go through the list. You've got a governor, an unelected governor. Republican, I mean, we talked about this earlier. The old adage, you can't beat somebody with nobody. Who's the Republican candidate? Who are the Republican candidates that are going to run for governor?
Doug, that's a nice saying, but let's go back to '94. Mario Cuomo, he was a somebody, right?
Right.
And George Pataki was a nobody.
Right.
And who won?
Right. And Al D'Amato was a nobody.
Let's go back to 1980.
1980.
Right.
Okay.
Al D'Amato was a nobody. Let's go back to what happened in Nassau County. Tom Suozzi was a somebody, right? He was the up-and-coming star.
Okay, tell me who the...
And Ed Mangano was a nobody. Who won?
Make news. Who's the nobody who's going to beat David Paterson? Come on. Come on.
Some of those names are out there already. Some of them are out, whether Rick Lazio, Chris Collins on the government. There will be new names out there also, and for the Senate, we have some good people out there.
Okay.
Liz Feld and other people who are, which I've worked with her in New Yorkers for Growth. Here you got a good fiscal conservative, and you got others who are out there, and others who will be coming out over this period.
Make the case.
Let me just make the point that the motto didn't emerge in 1980 until in the late spring. The motto didn't emerge in 1994 until the late spring. So we have time, especially because Mayor Giuliani, it would have been great if he had gotten into the governor's race or if he had gotten into the senator's race. But
you preferred him not to be in the governor's race. Why?
It wasn't just me. It was people like Guy Molinari and others who were close to him, who were thinking this out. What would his best run be? And the general idea would be better for him because he had run for the presidency. He had been dealing with national and international issues. That it would be better. He would make a very good candidate for that and other reasons for the Senate. But let me make.
But wait a minute. But the governor is the power guy. The senator is 1 out of 100. The governor controls much more. Wouldn't you rather have, if you had a choice between a Republican senator or governor, who do you pick?
A Republican governor, of course, for New York State.
Right.
But let me. We're looking forward.
Go ahead.
The thing is that until a week ago, Rudy Giuliani was in this with.
It was like the elephant, no pun intended.
Right,
the elephant
and he still officially was running for governor as well as for senator.
Right.
That was his right, but he did just as we're getting into the just before the new year, he said, "Okay, I'm not running for either office." He took himself out of the picture completely. Just on Sunday, and talking to Pete King, he has taken himself out of the Senate race.
Right.
He's like, now
Why
the
give
field,
up a safe
now
seat?
the field is wide open,
Yep.
and you're going to see new candidates emerging here that are going to be. There are somebodies in these because they're very capable people, but they're nobodies name-wise. But they're the people who will beat the somebodies who are in government, the Democratic somebodies who are in government.
What's the case against David Paterson?
The governor has always had the right message about fiscal conservatism. I heard him just after he became governor and finished Spitzer's second budget at the Association of Better New York, and he just delivered a great and something that I or Dean Skellins could deliver. This is what we got to do. Here are the problems today, and this is what we've got to do.
He can talk the talk.
And he meant it. I mean, this is not a mistake. Look,
Right.
he didn't read this.
No.
This was coming because this is what he felt.
But we're talking about walking the walk,
And
too.
actually, I was sitting next to Carl McCall and said, if he can do this, and this is going to be a real accomplishment for New York State. But for whatever reason, the workings of his party and the Democrats in the legislature, he couldn't get it done. And his second budget increased the spending by 13%, increased taxes similarly, and that was his budget completely. And now I just saw after a State of the State, this new budget is going to increase spending by several percentage. We cannot afford to do that any longer in this state, or otherwise we end up like California.
Does he run?
Yes, he's going to run. That's my opinion. But I leave that.
No. I know it's the other party's
Democratic
decision,
side.
but you have to consider this as the Republican Party's strategy.
Look,
Suppose if does Cuomo
I
run?
worked on a commission with his father, Basil, very bright and dedicated to doing what's the right thing for New York State. I worked with David Patterson on charter schools, where I was implementing the governor's program when I was a trustee. He is the governor of New York State. He's the first African-American governor in New York State, and he is going to see this through the end. That would be my opinion.
Does Andrew challenge him in a primary?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know. I don't know either.
We'll have to see. But the very fact that
I would presume you would rather run against David Patterson.
I think
than
3
Andrew
months
Cuomo.
ago, everyone has said, yeah, Cuomo is going to be. I have always felt that Patterson, in the end, because the powers he had as governor, and his basic intent here to do the right thing for the state, that I thought it would make it very difficult for General Cuomo to challenge him.
Okay.
We will now, you're even raising that question because the governor in settling this $3 billion interim deficit, he came on very strong on that. And the legislature didn't react, and the people of New York State said, you know, we like what he's saying and doing. That makes it harder, obviously, for General Cuomo to challenge him.
Make the case against Kirsten Gillibrand. What's the Republican case against her?
She's unelected. She was appointed, and because she was appointed, she's unsure of herself, and she's scared of a primary. So she is just going hard left in order to make sure she wins any primary. So she voted to fund for federal funds for a no uncorrupt organization, Acorn. She was only one of 7 senators to do that. Even Senator Schumer did not vote for that. She did because, and that is just absolutely the wrong thing to do. Time and time again, she is putting her political interests above the interests of the people of New York State because of her insecurity, because she wasn't elected. In the end, the people of New York State are going to see through that, and when we run a good candidate against her, that candidate is going to beat her.
And again, you're telling me that.
And by the way, she voted. She
voted. Candidate out there.
She voted for health care reform that's going to put $1 billion unfunded mandate on the taxpayers in New York State.
Okay. Okay.
The issues against her are huge. She's not been working in the interests of the people of the state.
Okay. Congress. New York is controlled by the Democrats. 27 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Now, you've got a couple of freshman and sophomore Democrats. I got to believe that you're targeting 8, 9, 10 seats.
Doug, that's the bad news for Republicans. We only have 2 of the 29.
Right. I'm trying to make. How do you make the good news?
The good news is that there are a number of those seats that are vulnerable, and there are 10 or 11 of those where we're going to have really good competitive races.
And you expect to win how many?
I think I could see us. The kind of year could be we could win almost all those, but maybe if you. At this point, I'd say maybe 7 of them we could take.
Are we talking about seats like McMahon's seat in Staten Island, the Murphy seat, the Owens seat, Massa seat?
Yep. You're talking about Carolyn McCarthy's seat.
Carolyn McCarthy's seat.
She's a one-trick pony that is becoming irrelevant now, and we put a good candidate. We got 2 good candidates out there. You can go up to the 23rd, as you said, the Owens seat, the Massa seat, the 24th, the 29th.
So you're going to run, and then these have national implications. So you must be getting national money, national staff. Is that going to happen?
Hasn't happened yet.
It will?
We've got to get the right candidates running in those districts. We're working hard on that.
When are we going to start seeing some announced Republican candidates for these various
we have a lot.
we've got Rick Lazio out there.
Oh, you mean at that, not the congressional seats?
No. at any of those levels? I mean, we're sort of waiting, you know.
Well,
it's mid-January.
Rick Lazio's
already.
out there, and I got to say, he's really getting on.
And he's
message.
running for governor. I heard that some folks are pushing him.
He's
Senate.
running for governor. Chris Collins has been out there going around the state.
He better watch himself. He's got to be careful.
He's had 20 chairs, 20 county chairs saying and urging him to run. And I think he'll probably be announcing pretty soon. We'll have other candidates also.
Who's running against Chuck Schumer? Nobody.
Chuck Schumer also voted to put that.
Excuse me, we're talking about electoral prospects here.
Well,
you're not telling me you could beat Chuck Schumer.
We're gonna.
I'm gonna have to put my hand on your forehead and ask you what you're smoking if you're telling me you're going to beat Chuck Schumer.
Let me tell you, he's gotten careless. He wants to be the succeed Reid. I mean, Reid could very well, the majority leader, Reid could very well lose.
Or be named ambassador to somewhere.
Well, whatever. Yeah. And Schumer would very much like to take that.
Sure.
So he's looking after his own ambitions. He has not been looking after the people in New York State. For him to put a $1 billion unfunded mandate on the taxpayers in New York State when we're in this kind of a fiscal situation, that is not the right thing to do, and that's going to make him vulnerable, along with some of the other things.
You want me to give you odds on this one?
You know, what would you have done in the Suozzi race? Who would you have bet on the Suozzi
Oh, excuse me. You're telling the guy who bets wrong all the time.
Okay.
I would have bet Suozzi.
Sure.
I would have bet Spano.
And now you're going to bet on now you're going to bet on Schumer, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Come on.
Look, Suozzi was the big name, right? He had millions of dollars in the bank, and along comes Ed Mangano, who is just as solid as you can get, a real fiscal conservative, and Nassau County is just tired of being the second highest taxed county in the United States.
So you really believe?
And New York State is the highest taxed state in the United States, and Chuck Schumer is responsible for that.
Wait a minute. So this is what I've got out of this this 27-minute conversation so far. That you're going to give Chuck Schumer a run.
You bet.
You're going to take out David Paterson. You're going to beat Kirsten Gillibrand.
Look, whether it's David Paterson or Andrew Cuomo, we're going to put up a good candidate against either of them. And,
we're not predicting wins.
We can win the governorship.
Okay. And then you're going to win 6, 7 congressional seats?
Yes.
And you're going to take control of the Senate?
Let me just say, we're going to win. The Republicans are going to win control of the House. This is going to be better than 94.
You're saying that the national Republicans are going to get control?
I will go flat out on that and say that the Republicans are going. Look, we were talking.
I have to have you back, because if you're not right, we're going to go after this.
Well, I was saying during the summer, even before I thought of being chairman of the party, I was saying that on November 4th, the headline would be Republicans win the governorship of Virginia, win the governorship of New Jersey, and win 2-1 Democratic Westchester County.
That's a good one. Jersey and Virginia.
And that's what I was. That would and.
But you didn't know.
We won that.
You didn't know Suozzi was going to lose in Long Island.
I wasn't looking at the race. I was looking. I was looking because I knew what was going on in Westchester. I was looking at that closely. And once we became chair on September 29th, we had 5 weeks. We went right into election mode. We raised $400,000. We put money right into the Westchester race, also into the Nassau race. We saw that was possible. We put boots on the ground, ballot security, good advisors there. But we also had a great county chair in Westchester. We also had a very good candidate there, as we had a great candidate in Nassau and Ed Mangano, and all just came together very nicely.
So we're gonna see. So you're coming back in the second week in November. We're gonna play the tape of this show.
You bet.
Thank you. Take care. Hello, I'm Doug Musio. Let us know what you think about this show. You can reach us at CUNY.tv. When you get there, click on the bar that says Contact Us and send your email. Whatever it is. Thanks, no thanks, obnoxious, do it. Send it.